Now, in terms of public services, especially public safety, so far the county has been able to avoid massive cuts to law enforcement. Eureka, with its upcoming budget process, might not be so lucky. What is your take on the funding priorities for the Sheriff's Department and probation and so forth in Humboldt County?
Well, I'll tell you, you're perfectly right when you say we're all in for a tough time. And while it's true that the county has not laid off sheriffs, what I can tell you is the Sheriff's Department has taken huge cuts. They weren't even, my understanding in talking to Sheriff Phil, when they went through the last round of budget hearings and other departments were asked to cut 10%, the Sheriff's Department actually cut like 12.5%. And yes, there's no layoffs, but I'll tell you what, there's 10 frozen deputy positions. There's also 12 frozen correctional officer positions that are unfilled, plus 2 community service officers. And so, well, we can say that no one's been cut. It's definitely cuts by attrition. I think public safety for the county has to be stated as a priority. It's a little, I have to say, the experience is a little different than what we deal with the city, because the city not only has the police, but we're responsible for the fire department as well. And the county doesn't have that same burden, though they do have burdens that are a little different that amount to making some really tough choices. But I think we've got to set that the priority is there. We can't continue having a smaller number of deputies and correctional officers doing extra work. And I will tell you, burnout is right around the corner. I know people that work in certain departments in the county, but in specific, this is the jail I'm thinking of, that pretty much work on their own. They work tremendous overtime hours, not so much because it's that they want it, even though it's nice for a while, but it's because there's nobody else there. And pretty soon you're going to have employees who are so tired and burned out, they're not going to want to be there anymore. And we have to find a way to treat the employees equitably.
Now, the flip side of public support is public accountability. Humboldt County is moving towards setting up a law enforcement liaison committee. That's sort of the first step towards a comprehensive police review system. I believe this committee will review policies, practices, and procedures, make recommendations, but wouldn't actually assess individual complaints unless the Board of Supervisors so moved in individual cases to hire an independent police auditor. Are you supportive of these moves on Humboldt County's part? Would you like to see this movement towards public accountability in terms of the Sheriff's Department continue?
Charles, I think public accountability is necessary and it's good. I'll be upfront with you. I haven't done as much educating on this item as I'd like to. I still have a lot of questions. Like I said, accountability is good, but I also believe that I'm one to believe that the present system, with having the grand jury available and other avenues, isn't necessarily a bad thing. So I'm in the process of determining what I think the right avenue is on that. To tell you the truth, I don't have enough information where I feel real comfortable saying it should be A or it should be B. So stay tuned. You can catch me on that one a little down the road, or you can even help me.
Now, in terms of the complaints we do hear, I'd say a lot of them revolve around how the poorer folks, and especially the homeless, are treated in the community. Obviously, the Humboldt County has a great deal of responsibility in terms of social services for these folks. How do you think we're doing that job, and what can we do differently or better?
Boy, Charles, I tell you, you asked some great questions. In looking at the social services budget, it's kind of funny going into the election. I wasn't sure. I always heard it was a huge amount of money. So I start getting information. Yeah, it's a $146 million budget. 6% of that's from the general fund, and there's some really, folks get a lot of help from those services, and they definitely need those services. But a segment that I feel like we're really missing, and I don't have the answer, and I'm not sure if anyone does, but I think we need to work on it, is the actual homeless component. Because a lot of the help that's offered by the county, is aimed at folks who have dependents. It's a little different. Someone who's homeless and doesn't have a dependent kind of falls in a different category, and the services aren't as available. You know, we do have opportunities, the rescue mission, you know, there are people who have banded together to help less fortunate. Betty Chin is a wonderful example. But as a community, it feels like we should be able to do something else. And, you know, there is general assistance that is available. I think it amounts right now to about $300 per person, and there's somewhere between 280 people that use that. But if you look around, people don't seem to be getting the help they need. And I think we really need to focus on, you know, what is it that we can do. And it may not be perhaps a county, maybe it's not the job of the county in this respect, but it's more the job of the community to pull together and say, what can we do? Because people who live here who are less fortunate are still part of our community. And I think we need to have a little more attention paid to the folks that we haven't been able to serve.
Mm-hmm. In terms of political reform, term limits for supervisors, campaign contribution caps have been suggested, electoral reform in terms of making these a one-round election instead of 2 rounds with ranked choice voting. What sort of reforms would you think would be worth considering for Humboldt County?
Well, I definitely think the caps is a worthwhile idea. I know that there's been some discussion, I think you've gone to the council meetings before, where the idea of caps has come up, and where there have been some people that think cap is a wonderful idea. There's other people who think that caps create more of a disadvantaged opportunity for folks who may not have a lot of support from, folks that get smaller contributions that may rely on a big contribution or two to help them run an effective campaign. However, I think you can establish caps, and I think the most important thing with finance reform or campaign reform is to have the rules be equitable, and it needs to be across the board. Now, I don't know what number is a good number for caps. I don't know, maybe it's a combination of all of them, but I think we need to be done because, quite frankly, it is crazy that we have local elections where, you know, for supervisors in a primary, you could easily, hate to say, spend up to $100,000. City council races are costing $60,000 or more, and that's a problem. But we have gotten to a point where if we can't find a way to rein it in that works for everyone, you know, you don't want anyone to be disadvantaged in running their campaign, but at the same time, you need fair rules, and it makes sense. As far as term limits, I think there's term limits for just about everything else as far as I know, and I have asked people asking, well, why aren't there term limits for supervisor? And I said, you know, I think it's something the community needs to decide. And at one point in time, they decided that that was right, you know, for state, and at one time they decided that was right for the city of Eureka. You know, I think it has to be something that's either brought forward, you know, by the public and say, you know, we think that you know, 12 years or 8 years, you know, 2 terms, 3, whatever it is reasonable. Because this isn't meant to be a lifetime career. It's a way to help your community, and it's like I said, it's never meant to be a career. And citizen politicians are much more effective.
Anything else you'd like to add for the voters at home?
Well, you know, this is really basic. Just remember to vote. I have to say, the folks watching, I'm sure, are very educated on the elections, or they probably wouldn't be watching. But it's really disheartening when you go door to door. Well, it's great to go door to door because you meet so many people, and you learn. I have learned so much that I wouldn't have known before. But it amazes me that there are a large number of people who say, I don't vote, don't bother with it, someone else can do it, you know, I don't know when the election is. And I find it really disheartening because, you know, frankly, I'm going to say, whoever you're going to vote for, even if it's not for me, you need to vote, because that's what makes a difference in the community. And when you don't vote, you know, you're selling yourself and the community short. So that would be my parting comment.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks all for joining us.
Wonderful coffee.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.